Welcome, everyone. I'm John Loescher. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the chapter president. It's my second year in this seat right now. We'll do more introductions of our chapter board in a few slides, but essentially what I'm going to be doing today is starting you off, getting us into some chapter business. We will then speak about and I should just show this slide. Our sponsor presentation will start at 4:30. That's from Timber HP, which we're all really excited to have joining us today. And then we'll have our feature presentation starting at 5 o'clock. So the feature presentation is quality and quantity. We're looking at accelerating single-family passive house developments. And this is going to be a number of case study projects as well. So we'll get to hear from a number of presenters as well here. So this is your run of show. We're going to try and stay roughly to this time period as best we can. But of course, this is meant to be a relaxed meeting, nothing too formal. If you guys have questions or comments in the chat, I will not be watching the chat live, but I know that a number of our board members will be. So if there's anything relevant to discuss during a slide, feel free to throw that out there. We'll make sure to do that. We're also making sure to have plenty of time for conversation at the end of some of the sessions, both for chapter business, of course, discussing the Timber HP product, and then we will have a discussion at the end of the feature presentation as well. All right, so first, some of the chapter business. We really rely on chapter membership to keep the chapter going. Please do check us out at phius.org/alliance. This is where you can become a member. Just to clarify, we do send out emails to over 1,000 individuals who have signed up for our mailing list, but that does not necessarily mean that you're a full chapter member, right? So to become a full chapter member, there are yearly dues. New CPHCs and CPHBs, which we have quite a few of, do get 1 year included when they complete the training. So make sure that you are staying active on that and participating in chapter events. You can see there's a professional membership, so it's a one-size membership for everyone. That gives you access to office hours, members-only resources, climate data, and then discounts to other events, such as webinars as well as PhiusCon. And then most importantly, once you become a member, it's really important to go into your Alliance membership. Michelle's going to show you how to log in a few minutes, and actually select the Hudson Valley or the New York chapter as your affiliate chapter, right? So the idea is that a portion of your dues get kicked back to us, 25%, and that, again, really helps make a lot of our events, especially the in-person ones, possible throughout the year. So we appreciate that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself, Lauren, and we can point you in the right direction. If you would just like to stay up to date on our offerings, you can go to our new website, phiusnewyork.org. Last year, we rebranded from the Hudson Valley chapter to the New York chapter. Changed our URL along with that. If you scroll down to the bottom, you can see our join mailing list, right? So this means that you will get your email blasts. There's not too many of them, but it will keep you up to date on all of our events that are happening. And again, this does not mean you're a full member. You do not necessarily get the member benefits, but you get the benefit of staying up to date with all of our events. Lastly, please do check us out on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We are very active at posting about projects, events, and other things that are going on that are relevant to Passive House in the area. Okay, so really getting into the chapter business, our fall meeting is our annual meeting where we have to unfortunately say goodbye to some of our board members and officers, but also luckily bring in some new ones to replace them. So first, we'd like to say thank you to Michael Robinson and Kramer Silkworth. They've literally been with us since the very beginning, since our chapter was founded back in about 2012 in a little coffee shop, I believe in Newburgh, I want to say. Kramer and Michael have been with us. They've sat on our board since then. And Kramer has been operating as our treasurer for the past at least 4 years, quite some time. So they put in a lot of work. Unfortunately, we have term limits on some of our board seats, and Michael and Kramer are both terming out. So thank you guys again. The good news is we have 2 new board members who just applied, and we were able to vote them in within the past 2 months. Jeff Betts is located in Troy, New York. He's with Sash and Frame. Jeff is a colleague that I've known for a number of years now, both through working at Ecovative, very interesting company if you haven't heard of it before, that grows mushroom insulation and mushroom foam, but now works at Sash and Frame, one of the owners there, helping with high performance window installs and sourcing. I'm sure you've seen Jeff around at a number of our events, very large individual, very difficult to miss. Personality-wise as well. So we're really glad to have Jeff on the team. Corey Murphy is with us to round out our Western New York contingency. Corey works with 475 Building Supply as well as is an instructor at RIT in Rochester. So he'll be joining Kyle Barber and Laura in the Western New York portion to help really make sure we're getting a strong showing for in-person events. So Corey, thank you. We're looking forward to working with you as well. We will be having a board retreat this upcoming January, where all of the board members, which you can see listed on the side, are going to be going into breakout groups, hopefully dealing with a lot of our growing pains as we extend the reach of our chapter. And we're looking forward to reporting back to you guys on some of those decisions in our upcoming spring meeting. A couple other chapter updates. Long time waiting. We've been working on this new chapter merch with the new Phius logo as well as the New York information. That is currently in print. We also have some tote bags that will start to make their way to chapter meetings. So look out for this in early 2024. We will be distributing this to a couple kind of distribution centers throughout New York State. We'll have some in the Hudson Valley, some in Western New York, and then we'll make sure some makes its way down towards New York City as well. So some information will come out about that soon. A couple other ongoing things. We have a newly revived policy committee. This policy committee is an open invitation to all members if you're interested in policy, specifically in New York State, but also reaching further than New York State. We do this once a week in coordination with New York Passive House. So Neil Rosen, one of our board members, is the primary point of contact on that. If you'd like to be involved, please reach out so that we can put you in touch with Neil. And then lastly, just updating everyone, we do have ongoing outreach and education. The largest growth in this initiative has been within education, so higher education. We still have 2 schools actively teaching the Phius CPHC within their core curriculum. That would be RPI, where I teach, and then University at Buffalo, where Laura teaches, one of our other board members. Just recently, we graduated another 17 CPHCs, or they just sat for their exam. They're pending their design exam, but hopefully all of them are passing. And we'll be really populating Western New York with a number of new CPHCs. If you'd like to know more about that or be involved, please reach out to me directly. We are lining up to have a number of other schools teach the CPHC, potentially including RIT, NYIT, Syracuse, and SUNY ESF. So any useful information, please do reach out to me directly. All right. So just continuing on, and then I'll get on to the good stuff in a minute. We do have these regions within New York, and this is really primarily focused on our in-person events, right? So we know Hudson Valley has, and I apologize, this is a bit grainy. has typically been where we hold all of our in-person events. We are hoping to start launching more in Western New York, specifically Buffalo and Rochester, because of the critical mass that we've been finding there. New York City and Long Island, of course, have critical mass as well, and we will be looking forward to scheduling there in 2024. The two main zones that we would like to hit more would be Central New York and the Adirondack zone, or the Northern zone. So if you guys have any ideas of projects that might be going on, individuals that might be able to help coordinate in-person events, please do reach out, let us know. We have the funding and the support, both from our membership dues, as well as from NYSERDA and our meeting sponsors, to make things happen at multiple points throughout New York State. Okay, so these are the ways that you can get involved. Of course, becoming a board member. This happens once a year in the fall. We will be sending out open invitations for people to apply as board members again. We've already had some interest since the last round. You can join a committee. More about that after our board retreat in early January. You can host a project tour if you're working on a certified project and would like to set up a tour. I'm thinking, Dan, because you just said it earlier. In addition to being the point person on that, we can help assist with marketing, finding a tour sponsor, etc. So that's always a possibility. Of course, planning an in-person event, and then at the very minimum, just attend and participate. Please come and be a part of this community. All right, almost there, guys. This is our big announcement. You may have seen through the Passive House Accelerator, some other Passive House groups. Reimagine Buildings will be occurring in March of 2024. This happens to align with our spring quarterly meeting, and we're hoping to have an in-person event to supplement this 24-hour online event. This is a global event where we'll be hearing about Passive House projects from around the world. We are working with the Accelerator and NYSERDA to specifically program a segment that is devoted to New York State and the projects that are going on across New York State. And then most potentially importantly, if you are interested in signing up for this, there is a small fee. I don't have all the details in front of me. We have been provided an affiliate link. So if you go to our website, phiusnewyork.org, you can sign up using our affiliate link. And again, a portion of those proceeds will come to us as a chapter, right? So that, again, really helps us continuing with our volunteer-led organization. Okay, so from here, I'm going to hand it over to Michelle Tinner, who is our Northeast Regional Rep. She is going to start this segment where we do a short recap for about the next 15 minutes on PhiusCon. We're going to hear from Michelle. Then we're going to hear from Brianna Egan, one of the student scholarship recipients, and then Stephanie Bassler, one of our other board members, is going to share. So I'm going to unshare now and let Michelle take it over.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, John. First off, it's so nice to see everybody on this Zoom call today. What a great turnout. And I did have the pleasure of going to PhiusCon in Houston, Texas. I'm going to sort of focus what I shared today more on my role that I play as the Lower Northeast representative for the National Phius Alliance. So we did have that annual meeting during PhiusCon. And just in case you don't know, the regions for representatives for the Phius Alliance have been kind of reconfigured, and now we have an upper Northeast and a lower Northeast, just because there is so much activity in the Northeast. I think Phius and everyone on the Alliance board agreed that it warranted multiple representatives. So the annual meeting with the folks that are part of the Phius Alliance was great. It was during the lunch session, and we basically got to gather together as a group and connect and really share our experience with Passive House, but also beyond. It was just a nice networking piece. And then a couple of the questions that were asked by the Alliance that we as the representatives passed on were how can the Alliance support you, or what support do you think you feel like you're missing that the Alliance could provide in terms of, your involvement with Phius and your work as a passive house professional. So I'm going to encourage you to answer that question if you'd like. You can type it in the chat to everybody or type it in to me personally. There weren't that many people in Texas to ask this question of, so I'm taking the opportunity here to ask it again. Similarly, they also asked, what can you do for the Alliance or for your chapter? So if you have a resource or a thought or an idea or something you'd love to share, we would really like to hear from you. And, please connect with us. Some of the things that participants responded with were, things they could offer were meeting spaces, for instance, or support with networking. And I think that's always a good thing for a chapter like this to have access to. And some of the things that folks felt like they needed were more professionals, a better kind of directory of professionals, and also more verifiers. So those are just a couple of examples. And then while it was really nice to connect with the few people that were there, I am hopeful that at next year's Phius conference, there's going to be a better turnout. And in case anyone here missed the announcement, next year's conference is going to be held in conjunction with Greenbuild in Philadelphia from November 12th to November 15th. And this is really an exciting opportunity that Phius is taking advantage of to expand their community and also to introduce Passive House to a broader audience. So the type of content that they're going to be bringing there is more introductory and intermediate level. They are going to be curating a track with Phius sessions that's going to be selected by Phius staff. And there will also be kind of a trade show floor highlight of all Phius products. So kind of still making an effort to keep the community together and to enable us to make those connections that we typically, are looking forward to when we're going to these national conferences. In addition to that, they're also going to hold another kind of technically focused and more tailored session or gathering in Rhode Island in October of next year. And that's really kind of to support the fast moving market in the Northeast. And I guess one of the ways that it was described was a nerd fest. So if you're into that kind of thing and you like the sessions that are like the really heavy hitters that get your brain all fired up, then you should definitely go to the Rhode Island session. And it would be great to hear just from everyone where you're intending to go to. I think we should kind of coordinate as a group, who's going where, and let's meet up and connect. I think that would be really nice. So just while I still have a couple minutes, I hope, a couple of announcements. The Phius Alliance does have some grant opportunities for chapters in good standing. They do offer a $2,000 grant that then the chapter would match for various initiatives. Our chapter has taken advantage of that a couple of times. And then also for individual members, if you're a member, there's a $500 grant for you to help either start a chapter or to promote Passive House. So if you want to know more about that, I'm going to be posting in the link where you can apply to those, but also feel free to reach out to me with questions that you may have. I'll add my email address in the post in the link as well. And then last but not least, I was asked to show you all that now from the Phius website, we can actually log into our portals directly. Let's see, I think it's desktop 2. Okay, everyone seeing my screen? Yeah, all right. So when you go to phius.org, if you're looking to sign into your portal, or if you're looking to sign up for like a webinar or some kind of training session, you can actually come here and you hit the login button and it brings you right to your person or your portal. So I can just show you really quick what that looks like. I think, let's see. Nope, I can't. Hang on. Here we go. And then you can log in, and from in here, nope, it didn't work. Yeah, now I'm logged in. I'm not exactly sure. The last time it brought me to my portal, which is a different place, but either way,
Michelle, I
it's,
just did that a moment ago, and you have to scroll down and it'll say
oh,
access your portal. There's a button somewhere.
where?
Oh, right there, you passed it.
Right here?
A little bit higher. I think is the access. Let's see. Mine had a little bit different one, but there's a
Okay.
place where you could access a button where you could access your
Access the portal. Here we go.
yeah.
And it
Yeah,
gets you
that was
there.
it. Yeah.
So you can look at, various your projects that are in here. I think also, yeah, events, and you can register for events directly in here. And that's the really cool feature that I want to highlight. So I think that sort of sums it up. Obviously, I'm no pro at that portal yet, but something we can all start exploring. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. I'm no pro either, so thanks for being brave and taking that on. All right. The next person is Brianna Egan. I don't know, Brianna, if you're here, if you want to unmute, I do have your slides up on the screen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brianna Egan. I'm a Master's of Architecture student at the University of Buffalo. I'm also a graduate research assistant, helping develop Phius training classes and curriculum at UB and other weatherization-related classes. I became a CPHC just over a year ago at the end of 2022. And I'm really grateful for receiving the PhiusCon scholarship to attend the conference in Houston this past November. This is my first time at a Phius conference and my first time in Texas. The updates related to the university expansion initiative were exciting to see. I'm especially excited for the training materials to be translated into other languages. That's been a barrier so far at UB, at least, where the certification process hasn't been very inclusive or accessible to our international students, since there aren't closed captions on the current training videos that we've been using. And as a result, the training takes significantly longer for those students and then becomes a burden on their course load. So translations and other resources, like the interactive guidebook and online details library that's being developed, will be really helpful at school. If you go to the next slide. Thank you. But overall, I had a great experience at the conference. I appreciated the different types of presentations, from the large group presentations. I went to Jeopardy for newcomers. There was conversational sessions, and then detailed mechanical engineering and their equations. As a student, I was listening in, trying to understand what work may look like for me in the future. In that sense, the hootenanny sessions were great conversations about their different experiences in working with clients, but also I went to their session about builders and architects getting along. I'm always hearing about the somewhat tense dynamic between builders and architects in the profession, and not usually enough about the good experiences. And I think this session demonstrated the community that Phius creates between the related professionals, all working towards the same goal and the ability to have those difficult conversations. And so for me, it kind of reinforced that this is a community I'd like to remain a part of and work within. I'm also currently pursuing a thesis about passive survivability in a power outage, and there were a couple sessions directly related to my topic that I was able to get wonderful resources for. And I met some great people. So in the photo there is Allison Kwok and I. Allison was the mentor to my current mentor, Nick Rakovich. So all in all, I just want to thank Phius again and for this amazing opportunity, and I look forward to future events. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brianna. It's great to get your perspective. All right, and then the final person would be Stephanie Bassler.
Hi, everyone. Apologies in advance. I have a cold, so my voice is a little less than usual. I'm sharing here some big picture takeaways from the conference experience. I had a lot of big feelings coming out of this, and good feelings. I was inspired from the start by a tour that we had of several Passive House or Passive House inspired projects in Houston. I misspelled it here, but it's Temenos. Houston is an organization that provides supportive housing to people who are suffering from homelessness and addiction challenges. And the building tour shared not only details of its construction, but aspects of its community and person-centered design, which I think can flow through any successful project, whether Passive House or not. And that was an aspect. The community-focused design also with a moniker of public interest design showed up in the featured keynote presentation of the Fly Flat team, which was an amazing group of former students of the of Prairie View A&M Architecture School, who 5 years ago designed or started a journey with the design of a infill development of an urban lot in Houston, and modeling it with several levels of energy efficiency and doing professional level cost benefit analysis, and ended up with multiple awards for this project, and have Houston on board now as a city with a piece of land and a start date for construction. So it's just an amazing journey that they shared of a community-focused design that held on to the goals of resilience and regenerative design for a otherwise, unfortunately blighted part of the city, and there are a lot of them in Houston. So that was just enough to make for the entire trip, just to see that project shared. And I'm going to drop the URL in the chat right now for everyone to have a look at the project, and you can Google it as well. Action was represented by a lot of different projects and policy initiatives, but the big announcement was from Phius was the release of a draft, a comment version of the new ASHRAE 227 passive building design standard, which is a culmination of a multi-year process from Phius to write a code standard version of Passive House, somewhat prescriptive design criteria, which is aligned with all of the language and elements of other ASHRAE and ANSI standards, such that it can be inserted into existing codes. It can be adopted by municipalities, jurisdictions, and can be enforceable because of how it's drafted. And so what I'm seeing, it wasn't said in this particular way, but it appears to me that Phius is getting out of the way of their own success in developing the design standard and making it available to, by way of this ASHRAE standard, to a much larger cohort of potential projects. And it appears to be that their Phius is ceding the certification process and oversight of their own standard by releasing this ASHRAE standard. So it will probably be a different pathway. I mean, I expect that Phius certification will persist, but it offers a pathway to Passive House to, as I said, a much broader subset. So that was just immensely well received and really exciting. There was a comment period. It's not adopted yet, but it's on the horizon. And then lastly, not to take too much more time, but the impact of projects is a theme that keeps coming up in these conferences. You know, scaling up, looking for more impact. How do we move the needle in the work that we do project by project? And I just wanted to mention again, most people are on this webinar are probably aware of the NYSERDA Buildings of Excellence program. If you're not, go check it out. It's a vehicle for market transformation, which many of our members are already involved in and have success stories to share of projects that have been awarded substantial funding. NYSERDA is providing hundreds of thousands of dollars to projects and offer Phius certification as a criteria to meet and be awarded this funding. So I just wanted to mention this as, yeah, maybe you know it already, but it's there, it's in the marketplace. And because we were in Texas, the fact of New York's sort of status as I think a front runner, a leader in providing incentive programs that offer pathways for passive house is you know, something to be proud of, something to really latch on to and to keep in your awareness day to day. So those were multifamily buildings. NYSERDA prioritizes low to moderate income and disadvantaged communities. So those aspects of equity in energy efficient design are sort of coming up repeatedly in my experience in the conference, and that was really great to see. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you very much, Stephanie. Well, thank you to all of our presenters. Actually, it's really great to hear some highlights from the conference that specifically relate to us, but also just give us some teaser. I'm definitely looking forward to it being a little bit closer next year around. So we're going to move on. We do have our sponsor presentation coming up next. Just a little teaser, the winter quarterly is worth 1.5 Phius CEUs. So please do write down the self-report code. I'll share it again at the very end of the presentation. And then you can do that by logging into the portal that Michelle just showed you earlier. If you can figure it out, then you can find a place to input this code. But in all seriousness, we're glad to help you do that as well. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to hand it over to Scott.
Great, thank you so much, John. I appreciate it. And Stephanie, you forgot one thing. We met in Texas, and without us meeting, you know, myself and Paige, who I'll introduce you to in a minute, we wouldn't be here tonight, and we wouldn't have become members. So it was a pleasure to meet you, and I really thank you so much for encouraging us to jump on and become a member, and we have. So I am going to try to see if my technology capabilities will tee us up. And so, John, if you can let me know, I know I've got to get it into the bigger screen size here, but are you seeing my presentation at this point?
Yes, we can see you. And if you go right down to the bottom, you just do that little slideshow icon right next to your slider that says 41%, and you should be able to get full screen.
All right, I'll have you. I see you are sharing the screen, and I see the 41 participants in chat. Help me, coach me through a little more, because it may not look the same on my end.
Yeah, we see your PowerPoint.
Yes, but you're not seeing it in full presentation mode, right?
Correct.
All right, hang tight. How about now?
Yes, perfect.
Great. Thank you again. So Scott Johnston, I'm the business development manager for Timber HP. Just a little bit of a background. I came in from Huber Engineered Woods, as well as many years with Anderson Corporation, both commercial, residential with Anderson, and primarily commercial with Huber. Super excited to be part of the Timber HP team. It's a long story, a fun story. We'll meet, we'll have a cocktail or two, but I need to finish my career here in Madison, Maine, because what we're doing up there is pretty special, and I hope you'll agree by the end of the presentation. Purposely have my contact information up on that slide for you to take down. Feel free to email, call me, what have you, glad to help. But before we get started, I'd like Paige to introduce herself, and she's also feeling under the weather, but go ahead, Paige, please say hi if you would, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Paige Malloy. I'm the Territory Sales Manager covering New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Rhode Island for Timber HP. I'm based in Newburgh, New York, so I can get everywhere pretty easily because I'm right off the thruway in 84. I have a background with Rockwool for 5 years, and then I worked for the Henry Company for 3.5 before coming over here to Timber HP. So because I'm under the weather, I'm going to let Scott lead the charge on a majority of this. I'll be here fielding questions in the chat and also posting some information and links in there so they're easily accessible to everyone. Same energy as Scott. There's my contact info. And if there's anything I can do, help you with, please feel free, text, call, email me. And thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thanks, Paige. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott.
I'm looking at the clock on the wall, and I'll be very quick here. Also, introducing here on this slide, Josh Henry, and if you read his quick bio there, he and I share the fact that, not at the same time, mind you, we both attended University College in Ithaca. He was on the other side, the higher side elevation wide over in Cornell. I was down on the lower one down there at Ithaca, and we always like to joke about that. But the connection in New York is the intent here. But Josh, who is the CEO and co-founder, PhD in physical chemistry from Cornell, and it's just so fun to work with, and his knowledge is quite incredible. And then Matt O'Malley, vice president and co-founder, and also running Opal Architecture. He's a passive house architect. The firm was the first passive house architect firm in Maine. And so, you look at it, they always set it up as, you go to a bar and you're telling a joke about, a chemist and an architect met. Would you think that they'd ever come out to create a manufacturing facility in Maine to make wood fiber insulation and be the first to do it in North America? Probably not. But quite frankly, without that unique chemistry, there probably wouldn't be anything being thought of in terms of manufacturing here in the United States without those two. Paige is going to send out a couple of links. You see where it says here, click link. I won't do that in the interest of time. She's going to send out a fabulous video. That's the origin story, and you'll hear more backstory about Josh and Matt and how they came to meet. She's also going to send out a really cool video on carbon, really primarily designed for consumers. So for your clients and such that know they want to do something better with their design and with your influence and with your help, it's just a 90-second animated video for the ADHD folks that need that attention span. It very cleverly will talk to your folks about the built environment and carbon. So I just wanted to tease you there. A lot of the presentation is going to be really focused on what we're doing, the product availability time-wise and channel. There will be some slides that I'll skip straight through because you all are expert on it as it relates to carbon and the limited time. But we are going to market as Timber HP ×3 in essence, and the timber is for obvious reasons. But the high performance piece is critical because we're not always speaking to a group like you. We're speaking to people that are looking at, really, I've got to use this, that changed my installation, or I typically use this. And, they're skeptical. So we really start the presentation about what wood fiber is as it relates to durability, performance in terms of the entire assembly. And we really like to talk about that, the open flow through assembly. And that's really critical for us, especially now that codes are asking us, and certainly Phius and Passive House, we need tighter structures. Well, wood fiber, we believe, can help you with those pursuits and help in many different reasons to really reduce the liability of those assemblies because they need to be so tight. We have Vapor Open that can help here. Healthy Planet is just fabulous. I mean, I've got a couple of chips here that I brought in on my chip bag. Here's the camera. I have to bring this. I'm down in Mass, and keeping with the theme of New York, a buddy of mine went to Ithaca College with me, and I'm at his house here as I run through Massachusetts back up to Maine to get the internet. But here, Healthy Planet really talks about the fact that because we're in Maine, we've got an abundant amount of raw material, which we call feedstock. And that makes it successful for us to be able to produce this here in the United States and bring the cost down to make it more manageable for you on the budget side. So you don't have to go to your client and say, hey, I really want to use this product for a lot of wonderful reasons, but it's going to be 20% more. You'll learn today that that's not the case now that we're making it domestically here in the US. So abundant resources for us here in Maine and future areas too. Healthy people's a no-brainer, right? We build the houses as we do today. We got to make sure that that living space, that air that they're breathing in is of quality. The other fact to me that's near and dear to my heart is the materials themselves for the installers. They can feel it, touch it. There's not a lot of protection other than an SDS that tells you a paper mask when you're cutting and blowing into the attic. I mean, it's an incredibly different experience for those installers than what they're used to today. So that's really our go-to market strategy. Here's where I'm going to be fairly quick because this audience knows this. You guys can speak to this. And I really want to get into what the product looks like, when is it available to use, where can I buy it? But really, we all know this here, 40% of the buildings are contributing to the carbon. And what I'm seeing and hearing as I travel to places like Texas or Nessie event down in New York City or AIA, it's okay. We've been dealing with the operational carbon for years and doing a pretty good job. Particularly this crew here has done a fabulous job of getting that operational piece addressed. But what are we doing with the embodied carbon? In that video link, the mission video that Paige will send you, there's a really cool dynamic between Josh and Matt in the sense that, hey, I'm building this really wonderful building based on these design intents, and Josh looking at him because he has no dog in the fight, so to speak, says, but I'm confused because that material that you're using to help on the outside with the continuous insulation is very highly indebted on the fossil fuel side. So it's a very interesting dialogue, and embodied carbon is something that we need to think about, because as we look at continuing to drive down that operational consumption, what are we doing in all facets of the specification of a building? Here I speak to insulation. Is there something that we can offer here in the United States that's affordable, hits the R value points, has the durability, addresses code, but can address embodied carbon? And that's really what we believe that the wood fiber can do here in the United States. It's the second highest category that needs for folks to address this, because it does contribute quite a bit to that piece with regards to embodied carbon. This is just something to show you. I'm not here to get on a holier than thou piece, but in this category, we use materials for all the right reasons. Their insulation values, maybe it's something we're putting under a slab or up against concrete for durability, or maybe it's commercial for non-combustibility, etc. There's many, many reasons. Again, wood fiber isn't going to cure all of it. Our wood fiber only fits into a certain segmentation of the market, but certainly this category, there's areas of improvement that can be had. And this is a significant contribution here. And most everybody on this call, I'd be shocked if you hadn't been following the European products for years. Many of you on this call have probably utilized these products coming out of Europe and being shipped into the United States. But to be able to finally have wood fiber here in the United States to get rid of that boutique piece, we're no longer needing to ship it on a container. We don't need to worry about the impact in terms of getting it to the job, in terms of the scheduling, if you will. And so the big thing here, if you look at spray foam and XPS, and again, there's certain instances where you need to use these things, but that's a 6 to 8 year, operation to be able to offset that embodied carbon. So we're really super excited to give some options out there, not just for folks like yourself. I want to really make sure that you realize that we're working hard to make it affordable for mainstream. I'm really psyched to be working with some folks on affordable housing. Their budgets are really tight. That's kind of fun. And also looking to work with, and I signed a non-disclosure, but we're working with a large production builder that's also looking at this as well too, which is cool. So our raw material, like I said, abundant. We're really in a situation where sadly all of the paper mills, there's only 3 left, 16 at one point. All that's been shipped off to other parts, other destinations of the globe. Our equipment that was in our mill, and I'll show you photos of the mill at the end, all that was shipped over to Asia. And then we imported our equipment from Europe, mostly from Germany, to put back and be ready to make to make this wonderful wood fiber. Ironically, the same actual feedstock that made high glossy insert paper is the exact same feedstock that we use. So we're able to reconstitute that relationship with the forestry industry, which is just super exciting to us. And, you know, here we look at the United States, there'll be other people, other folks besides Timber HP that'll get into this category. And I think that's fabulous. We need it. We have such an abundance amount of raw material in the United States for wood, softwoods. Anywhere you see that timberland, production facilities can be stood to be able to make, you know, whether it's the blown in alternative to cellulose with our wood fiber, the bats, and or the continuous insulation. So great trajectory here. John, I'm going to ask and put you on the spot from a time perspective. I'm going to assume most of these folks are very much aware of these brands. I had a 2 to 3 minute video that shows these products being installed, you know, little snippets. Be glad to show it. But you tell me if you think that this audience is well beyond that.
I don't think there's any harm in showing it.
Okay.
We have a little over 10 minutes.
Okay, good. Then I will do that, and we'll have a little jazzy music in the background, and here we go. Did that music play through for everybody? Oh, yeah, it's going to be stuck in your head now for a little while. But I think it does a fabulous job. And if we had more time, we'd ask, you know, what did you see there that was unique and different? The only thing I'll leave you with is I love the guy that had the face mask just dangling from his neck. Typical guy. What can I tell you? This is the essence of the manufacturing. And I came from the wood window and door side, and there's a lot of complexity to it. Oh my. The engineers would kick me for saying this, but really, if you look at this piece for wood fiber insulation, it's pretty straightforward. The cut section they're seeing, obviously somebody upstream is going to use that tree that's going to be brought to their facility, and they're going to debark that for bark mulch. They're going to yield as much off that tree as they can for their dimensional or beautiful decorative trim. Now, what they've done in the past is they sold that chip off to the mill, or they might on site, or where somebody else may pick it up and burn it off in biomass, right? So abundance of this softwood species up there for us. We utilize it. The trucks are blowing past our facility because we're right in the sweet spot for the forestry industry. We're going to add some additives. We'll talk a little bit about that briefly, but a pretty straightforward process. You know, again, carbon storing, high performance, recyclability, non-toxic, safe. I will say this because this is a very sophisticated group. We're going to immediately get offline for the production. So when we make the fill, when we make the bat, when we make the board, we're first and foremost going after ASTM and code compliance. Then the second tranche of the work, which takes 9 to 12 months, life cycle analysis, declare a label, all of that's coming. So be patient with that. But that is a no-brainer for us. We've got to do that. And then, of course, you know, Class A, Class B, we are for both the fill and for the bat. We're an ASTM E84 flame spread A. So primarily anybody on here that's doing combustible type 5 residential, good to go. We also are going to be able to be in type 3. We just be mindful of that NFPA 285 and less is where the sweet spot is, but also into the CLT. this is where we fit. This group knows, we can do dens pack, we can do blown into the attic, we can do weatherization work. On the right, upper right, farmhouse and Maine, deep retrofits. Lower left, that's a brand new construction. That's the College of Atlantic. You can see the Sienna red, which is telling you it's a wood frame construction. That's a zip product. Here they've brought Gutex to be used to the exterior. We'll be able to now produce in the summertime. We'll have a board for you as well, and I'll get more detailed on the timing of that. Timber fills just a straight up 100% alternative to cellulose. We are in the market now, good to go for your market. We've got Cameron Ashley. That name may mean nothing to you, but the importance is that we've got a distributor that's selling it to all the large installers that come out, that are hired guns to come out to your projects and blow in cellulose. They all have access to us. So lots of work has been done there. It's really a 1-for-1. If they've been blowing in cellulose material, their equipment works. We've got training videos, all kinds of spec things there, good to go. But we're only using borate. We're using a liquid borate, so we're infusing that into the wood fiber. So when they're blowing it into an attic space, it's not coming off the product. 3.8 per inch in a dense pack wall. I'm going fast because of time. Bat is exciting. We have the equipment up and running, and we're looking to launch the bat in January. We're going through the final code compliance, ASTM testing, R value and such. So it's super excited. This piece that I have is made in the plant a couple of weeks ago. R4 per inch, again, all softwood species. The only additive here, there's 2 borate, as we mentioned, for fire, bugs, and water. And we are using a little bit of a PMI resin, which is a polyester piece. We are looking to try to eventually get rid of that. We looked at bio-based adhesives and such, more fuel to make that adhesive than what the polyester is needing to be done. It's a bi-component. And so it's a huge toaster oven. And we're trying to infuse that into the product to get the density and get the R value that is necessary for us to hit those R value pieces. That's it. So it's wood and those other 2 components. Very easy to work with. We have all kinds of cutting tools, suggestions. We actually will have those readily available at the lumber yards, but very easy to work with. I'm not wearing gloves. You can brush it off. I do recommend that you use a paper mask when you're cutting quite a bit. But we're really excited about that. And then board's a bit trickier, a lot more things to do there to make that. We have the equipment in place. Our contractors are bringing it to life now. Q1 will be bringing it to life, producing and slowly getting those testing parameters done. We're hoping, praying that we're looking for a spring time frame for this. All 3 of these products, the 3-part specifications on our website. It's on RCAT. We're working with a whole host of designers, architects, engineers, developers, where we do have a lot of these products already in their specifications, and that's available to you right after this call. These boards will be all the products that we're doing are really nailed down based on codes, so that plug and play. What's my cavity need to be? In New York, I need this. What's my board? All of the data that we have should be very straightforward for you. Thermal management, I mentioned this earlier. Really, that middle shear, that sheathing in the middle, that white piece there is the outer plywood or OSB. That's what you're going to continue to do, what you've done before. What does my shear strength need to be? What's my preference for my WRB, my water, bulk water, air, etc. The exterior board is purely thermal. We'll have a lot of suggestions for you. We have a manual that's in design now. Joe Stiebrick is helping us with that. But yeah, that's the open assembly that we talk of. The wood fiber can hold upwards of 15% in weight and still perform at the published R value. When it dries out, it dries out without any degradation. So very, very durable. And vapor open, we have about a 40 to 70 perm with these various products. Obviously, on the outside, we treat that a little bit differently. There, we're not putting borate in. There, we're using an MDI resin, which is what the OSB panels folks use. That's for the durability. It's giving us a really great compression durability of PSI. If you've ever worked with mineral wool and you put your rain screen on, you worry about the torque Here, this gives us resistance. So that trade doing that might not be putting on the cladding, we reduce, because of the PSI durability, we reduce that telegraphing concern. And then we're using paraffin wax because we've got a 6-month exposure rating on that board on the wall, and then 3 on the roof, and then it's monolithic. So if I take a claw handle, chunk out a section of this, not to worry, as long as it's not catastrophic, the MDI and that paraffin is still there. So as that's still being weathered, we haven't compromised the product. This is, I think, what a lot of folks on this call are really, really wanting to know. And if these dates don't come to fruition, I think Paige said that she lives in Newburgh. I live in Maine, so it's harder to get me.
Yeah, come get me. It's my fault for sure.
We have a good working relationship. So we're good to go with Phil. I mean, Paige has been having a ball out there, getting on some job sites, doing a lot of training. You might go to some retailers and you bring up Timber HP products. They might go, what? There's still a lot of work at that level, but Paige is who you want to call and triangulate on, hey, where's the closest source for me? Our goal really for everybody on this call is this: independent retailers, right? Not everybody's going to jump at it. There's certainly, as you know, a lot of folks that have been early adopters for other products that you procure, but we want to work through independent lumberyards and those other distributors that I mentioned that do the blown-in insulation. So that's our goal. Timber bat, really mid-January. That slide's a bit deceiving. The 7.25 will be March. To get that R value to hit that for the thicker pieces is a fun task. But our 3.5 and our 5.5, everything is looking good for mid-January. Okay. Timber board, and like I said, we don't even put that date on that slide because we got a lot to do. But the goal is to get everything, play around with everything in Q1, and then hopefully early summer, have that good to go. Okay. But that's the timing on this. And, it's not just thermal for the bat and the fill. Don't forget, for the timber fill and for the bat, we've got some great STC ratings. We're having some testing assembly coming in at STS 53, depending on how you're configuring that. So a lot of fun. Price point real fast. Cellulose, we are market to market now. Before it was just, speculation, but what we're finding is, depending upon what the individuals want to get for margin that we don't control at the selling spot, we're coming in right on par. We really are. So that is modeling quite well. We've had some jobs where we're coming in less. We are supplying residential projects, weatherization programs, and I've got a couple of some pretty good size multifamilies where they've switched us out. We've done the substitution, gotten approvals, and we're good to go for market rate multifamily and affordable housing too, which is cool. Timber board will be parity to foam, and we should be less than the mineral wools. So the board is easily transported. It's a sheet good, so no real major changes there. The timber bat, love timber bat, but as this slide shows, fiberglass is extremely lower in cost because they've been doing it since the 30s, and they know how to cube out a truck very efficiently because you can roll it up like a sleeping bag. You can stuff that 53-footer with a lot of stuff. But that's not who we play in. We play against the mineral wools, and I think you'll see that we'll be in good shape there as well. So we're really excited about that. Just a couple of factory photos, and then I'll stop because I know you have a lot more to do. That's the rendering upper left. There's another drone of the actual facility when it was bought. That river that you're looking at is very angry right now. Good to report that no damage done to our main plant. Some of our annex buildings did take some flooding and such, but all of northern New England, and you guys probably in New York too. I mean, the last 2 days were pretty painful. But we'll take back this 400,000 square foot facility, and in 2016, 150 people lost their jobs. At full production, will be up to 125. We're at about 75 now, and of course, the impact locally is going to be fabulous. So here's some of the construction work. Stantec Engineering repurposed this mill. This was built in 1986 by Chimbro. If you're not aware of them, they're They're really a great firm here in Maine, and they're growing. But they are repurposing the mill that they built in 1986, built off Stantec's work. And this is kind of a closer photo to what it looks like today. So it's a big operation. And if you're ever up in Maine, call us. Oftentimes, I think the first month or two, give us a bit of a vacation. There's a lot of finish work that needs to be done, but we will entertain tours. And I know you're a long way from where we are, but maybe if you're vacationing up here and you give us enough notice, we might be able to get you involved with a tour. But this is the last slide I'll show you. Well, actually, 2 more slides. This on the left is the bat machine. That's that large toaster oven, if you will, that's conditioning that material, getting that bicomponent into the material to make sure we're hitting the R values. To the right, you can see the bat line, but in the distant view, you can see the end line of the board plant that's there. And yeah, that's it. I tried to squeeze it in 30 minutes.
Yeah, no, Scott, you did perfectly. We're still right on time. Thank you so much for that presentation. We can take a question or two if anyone wants.
Great. I see there's a lot of chats out there, so maybe Paige has been responding to some of those too. Paige, is there anything that comes to mind that you think are critical real fast that are important questions?
If you want to go over, just because it was asked for a sustainable substrate for stucco finish when using the timber board. I expressed, obviously that detail will be highlighted in our install guide, but I didn't know if it was worth just touching on now.
So you allow people from away, like to come onto these calls to talk about that application? I'm kidding. Yeah, it's it's very similar if you've used like a zip system and you're putting the 2 layers on. No different with us as well. And yeah, that still needs a little bit more vetting out, but yes, we do have, and we will provide best practices for that application. We can do it with the timber board for sure, but I'd rather be working off some of the detailed drawings to show you that. But yes, we've all learned, haven't we? We need to be very, very on point to make sure that condition is done proper. We'll have that for you.
All right, very good. If there's no other questions, we should probably keep moving on to our feature presentation. Scott and Paige, thanks so much again. It was really great having you, and I'm glad that Stephanie ran into you in Houston.
Thank you all. Everybody have a safe and happy holiday. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Safe and happy holidays, and be well.
All right. So without further ado, we have about an hour left. We're going to go into our feature presentation today. Again, as a reminder, this is worth 1.5 Phius CEUs. If you need those continuing education credits, make sure to write that down, and I will share that again at the end of this presentation. So let me make this full screen. You haven't gotten rid of me just yet. I'm going to be the moderator for this one. This is a session that we had presented with a slightly different group in Houston. And I thought it was a really interesting one and kind of unique to what we typically see here in New York. So I'll be doing a quick introduction of why this is relevant. And then we'll go into 3 separate case studies. It says here 25 minutes each. We're going to have to probably keep it more to like 15 per group. And then, of course, we'll have a little bit of discussion and Q&A at the very end. Okay, so this presentation basically came up with the idea of looking at the Phius certification queue and noticing that it's really these large multifamily projects that are taking off exponentially, right? Given the buildings of excellence, like Stephanie had mentioned earlier, as well as what's going on in Massachusetts, promoting Passive House as essentially the mainstream standard for all of their new construction, large multifamily buildings, we can really see in this chart here that the multifamily projects are what are really increasing rather quickly. Now, what I've sort of reformatted this information is what percentage between all certified projects in a year can be attributed to multifamily versus single family. And back in 2014, when Phius officially announced the Phius Plus 2015 standard, the first climate-specific standard, we can see that the majority of those projects were single-family projects, right? And we kind of ride through that until the release of Phius Plus 2018. Now, with Phius Plus 2018, there started to be adjustments for the occupant density and the overall size of the buildings to make it easier to certify large multifamily projects within the Phius climate-specific targets. And you can see that's really the point where multifamily starts to take off. At the same time that the Phius Plus 2018 criteria was released, we also start to see a lot more incentive programs throughout the United States occurring. And then we also start to see more QAP points, qualified allocation plan points for low income housing being attributed to passive house building, right? So if you're going to bid on a low to moderate income housing project that's being federally funded, within that request for a proposal, if you propose it to be a Phius or a passive house building, you're going to have more points that essentially make it easier for you to be selected. So these number of things going on in the market have really fueled what we're seeing today, where we're just seeing massive amounts of multifamily projects being developed, especially in the Northeast, but also elsewhere in the country. Meanwhile, we have the single family market, which is still staying pretty consistent, right? But in this chart, because of, we can see the percentages started to be shuffled up a bit, we can see obviously the single family market is a smaller percentage of total certified buildings. And myself, I happen to work on mostly single family projects, as a number of you I would imagine do as well. And we really want to find ways that we can find the same amount of success within the multifamily market and apply that to the single family market. So the intent behind this presentation is to encourage ways that we can make some more waves, playing off of this analogy of the drop in the bucket, right? We have about 230 single family projects as of 2023. That's Phius certified projects. If we look at the 2022 census survey of new construction, we have over 1 million new single family projects, right? So the percentage is even worse there, right? And we want to, here at the New York Phius Alliance chapter, make passive building mainstream. So how do we start going about that? And these are a number of accelerants, as I'm calling them, that will start to show up over these different case studies. So alternative construction methods, prefabricated options, both modular and panelized. We're seeing some of the first modular Phius buildings going up actually right in Westchester right now, Lamora Senior Living. CNC fabrication in order to minimize offcuts and fabrication waste. And then some exciting new materials and products, very much like what we just saw from Timber HP. We have alternative project delivery methods, integrated design development, design build or integrated project delivery methods, and then on-site training and certified professionals. So having the ability to see the big picture all the way from schematic design to the final certificate of occupancy in the building goes a very long way in helping make sure single family market is delivered with more efficiency. We have a number of Phius protocols for developments as well. So Phius offers ways to make certification for multiple buildings a lot easier. We don't have to go through an individual certification process for every individual building in a larger development. We have a cumulative project review process where essentially you identify your worst case building, model that, certify that, and then certify the rest of the prototype buildings off of that one. And then we also have things like a site source energy protocol that will allow you to average out your source energy results from all of your buildings on a larger campus in order to make sure that you're passing the Phius protocol, right? So even if you have a low, a low performing building that might not be hitting that source energy target, by all of the buildings on a site hitting that and creating an average that satisfies the protocol, every building on the campus would therefore fall under the Phius targets. And then the last thing here is the Phius 2021 core prescriptive path. This is something you've probably seen me talk a lot about over the past 2 years, but within this presentation, you'll get to see this actually being used in more of a production method to certify projects in a much shorter timeline. So these are our 3 case studies. We're going to be hearing from passive to positive first. We have Andy Allwine with us today. He is working with road architects in Massachusetts to work on 17 individual residences integrated with complete site design and targeting Phius 0 certification. The second speaker is going to be Matt Bowers with AUROS Group. This is a project in just outside of Pittsburgh called the Rachel Carson Eco Village. It's very much in the prefabrication stages right now, and I'm looking forward to get some highlights from Matt on this one. And then our final presenter or case study is going to be with Stephanie Bassler, North River Architecture and Planning, on the Phius prescriptive path projects and the Flex House series that Stephanie has worked on. So I'm going to skip through these in order to just make some time for everyone to get into it. And I will come back at the very end to help moderate the conversation. So Andy, I believe you'll be going first, and I can you can share your screen or I can share for you. It's up to you.
Oh, I can share. Let's
All right.
Yep. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yep. Very good. Thanks, Andy.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So yeah, I'm Andy Allwine, working with Michael Hindle at Passive to Positive. And the project, let's skip ahead here. Project we're going to talk about is Eagle Rock, as John mentioned. So this is the largest single family development project that we're working on. It is in Stoughton, Massachusetts. It's 17 sites, as you can see in the site plan there, and 3 different building types across those 17 sites. And so there were a number of project priorities or goals or characteristics that we sort of started out with. The first is consistency of construction. And really, there's 3 different building types, so there's a variety of building forms, but the architect and the developer are really striving for an overall cohesiveness of community design. And that's sort of a thread that runs through a lot of the decisions that we've made. The next is, of course, passive house integration, and using, I think this will be a case study, really a story of integrated design process, because that's where we found most of the benefits, have come from on this. The passive house consultants, we were involved from the very beginning, from conceptual design, and have been an integral part of the team every step of the way, which is not always a typical process. And it's amazing what you can accomplish when the whole team's working together. And I think that is especially able to be occurring with this project team because the architect and the developer have some experience with passive house. They're coming off of a really successful three single family house development, also in Massachusetts, that was certified to the PHI standard. And so they know the general principles, they know the level of involvement that's needed to realize a successful passive house project. And that extends to knowing to have the whole team involved from the very beginning. And so because of the integrated design process, I sort of alluded to before that we were able to accomplish a lot more than everyone set out to do. Some of those bonuses include taking a look at low embodied carbon materials, looking at resilience, and then sort of this idea of how to take all these ideas, environmental or otherwise, and really try to create a community around that. Okay, so one of the benefits of that early team dynamic on this single family development was, the ability to determine passive house principles early on. So put simply, we're trying to put the passive back in passive house and really bring those principles to the fore. You can see the photos here, and we have some that were even earlier, just on like site plans. But we were, again, in the room from the beginning when we're looking at building massing or site orientation, or the interface of the foundation in these various sites. And even, this is in and you'll see in a second, really wooded, naturally beautiful area. And so the architects want these large viewing windows in different locations. So working with them as to what the best location for that is, and then coupling that with shading where needed. So I'll skip to those site images, because these really start to represent some of the early challenges that we saw pretty quickly. Really upon our first site visit, we could see that there's a huge variety of landscape per site. And when you're trying to, so there's, 5 of one type of building, 5 of another, et cetera. So when you're trying to certify for one building type, but you don't necessarily know what the landscape around it might be, or it makes it a challenge to figure out how to go about that process. And as John had mentioned before, it really does come down to a couple things. One is to standardize as much as possible, and that included site orientation. We were able to work with the architect, even though the topography varies throughout the site. All of the instances of every building are oriented within 15 degrees of south. So that helped. To overcome sort of the landscaping unknowns, we're trying to design with as big of margins as we can with our passive house criteria for ease of pre-certification. And then also allowing, for a decent sized buffer to account for that variability. And of course, the unknowns of construction. And I should have mentioned early on, but I think of the 3 case studies that we're looking at today, this is the earliest in the design process. We're still documenting, we're wrapping up documentation of the first house type that will go into construction in the spring or summer of this year. And while that's in construction, we'll roll through design documentation of the next one, and then the third wave. So this is a multi-year process. Yeah, so looking at going from the site to the buildings, we had 3 different building types. So we did a quick-ish SD or conceptual level energy model for the 3 different houses to determine the worst case scenario. What you see here on the screen represents that worst case scenario. They call it the flat house. It's really long, elongated. So it's a linear layout. It's the largest conditioned floor area per occupant. There's these large southern glass walls that we had to account for, and it's very open on the inside. And the architects wanted to keep it that way. So there were just a lot of challenges that went into this house design. And I couldn't possibly do a passive house presentation without showing some energy model results. So here's that. And it's purposefully blurry, so I don't have to get into the details here. But the point of this really is this shows a lot of our results from that initial analysis. The red box is that flat house that we thought would be the worst case scenario. And it does show that we need a lot more insulation in our assemblies to get worse performance values. So that's how we started to determine, okay, let's start with this house. so not only looking site by site, but the different house designs for certification to go with the worst case scenario. And we're starting that pre-certification process with Phius here this month. And so we will go through that process of reviewing the worst case and then all the iterative designs sweeping in after it. But obviously some of the criteria that we're looking at when we do these types of things, as everyone on this call is probably looking at, thermal and airtight performance. The developer will also be the builder, so we're also able to have really early conversations about constructability, familiarity of the team with the assemblies. They had this prototype project that I mentioned of the 3 houses, and I know they don't want to make this another prototype by changing too much of it, but of course, there's differences between the PHI and the Phius standard. It's a different site altogether, and the house designs are different. So there's naturally some variation that's occurring. And then we were able to look at embodied carbon a bit, and we take a look at that now. So this is one of the 2 topics that I'll show here that we were able to bring to the table because of that early project integration. I think everyone on this call probably knows the importance of reducing embodied carbon. And as a practice, Passive to Positive works to incorporate this level of analysis into all of our projects and be able to present this to the team. We'll often have these early conversations, and I feel like design teams are interested, but it's still a little unclear what really needs to be done, what kind of impact different steps might have, and that's not even to mention the costs or perceived costs associated with it. So we kind of took this opportunity to do a really early, again, this was in, I think, early schematic design while these buildings were being first developed. So that we could bake some of these design or decisions in early. So we used the Beam software for some, again, this is really pretty high level. The orange bar that you see there is that baseline prototype project. And then we just took 5 or 6 or however many steps. A lot of this was, changes to the insulation products. So switching out from a higher global warming potential foam to, lower GWP products like the wood fiber we just saw or cellulose. And we were able to bring this to that early conversation and say, look, here you go. You can get up to 70% reduction of embodied carbon. And this is at a high level analysis. We haven't even started to fine tune it yet. And so that kind of changed the direction or that initial discussion from something that's a little nebulous to something that is more manageable. And having that visible, making this visible made a positive difference in that. There was a lot of motivation then, and the team really embraced the goal of reducing the embodied carbon where possible and as much as possible. And so it's now one of those criteria that we think through when we're making design decisions. So that's great. Once it was embraced, and the goal is that then we can start to fine tune it and look at individual systems, which is what we started to do here. And so this is, I won't again go into too much of the detail for sake of time, but this is the exterior wall assembly, a embodied carbon comparison. So now we start to layer in structural, in thermal, of course, performance, as well as embodied carbon. And on the right there is just a guidance document that we have that we can fine tune for each particular project. And this one happens to be on low embodied carbon concrete. So it helps guide teams through the design and then ultimately the specification process. Okay, let me speed up a little bit here. I'm looking at the time. The other topic I wanted to mention was resilience. And this was another one that, again, we brought this early on as a topic of discussion, and really simple graphics, as you see here, that we just kind of put together in order to discuss this. And we thought this was an exciting concept. There's a lot of potential to scale resilience and energy solutions in mid to large scale housing developments. and what you see here is it kind of acts similar. It's a concept that's similar to like an interior finishes package, where you have different upgrade options. In this case, it would be resilience and energy measures that are all pre-designed and really ready for installation. I think, and I can just walk you through quickly, but the basis of design, that top level would be passive survivability, which is essentially what you're getting with the passive house design. The next package up would be net zero, adding enough solar to hit those net zero targets. The next resilience package would be that same solar, but now it's balanced between PV generation and energy storage. So you're actually building in resilience. And then the ultimate package would be enough solar to hit both net zero and resilience. And the concept here is that because the houses are so similar, and the details the assemblies are the same, details are similar, you really just need 3 solar and battery studies, and then the developer has 17 possible upgrades, 1 per house, that could really be a win-win for the residents getting some great benefits and the developer having this additional potential profit coming in. All right, so very quickly, let me just skip ahead here. This was a discussion that the developer brought to the table about how to build community, and I think there's a lot to think about. I'll just zoom forward here so we can get to the next. What makes the communities unique? What ties these houses together? Really, how is it marketable? And I think there's a lot to talk about here, but our takeaway from this was you have your architectural elements, the way the buildings and the community look. We have our low impact sort of conservation first environmental ethic that could go into it. But I think there's a lot that goes into this resilience that could be a part of building community, whether it's through the health and comfort aspect or the resilience potential for resilient homes. So with that, I will end. Thank you very much.
Andy, thank you so much. Sorry you had to rush through that, but I think you were thorough enough. I think we can hand it over to Matt, who's going to be presenting next for AUROS Group. Matt, would you like to share your screen? Or? Okay.
Yeah, I can share. Sure. While I'm bringing that up, Andy, it's interesting that you mentioned that project that Rode did in Massachusetts, because I was the certifier for that project.
Oh, great!
So, yeah, so that's always good to hear. Yes, that was a very successful project. Good evening, I guess. Good afternoon, evening to everybody. I'm Matt Bowers. I am the Director of Building Science at the AUROS Group. As I just mentioned, I am a PHI certifier, but that doesn't mean that I don't get involved in Phius projects as well. So today we're going to talk a little bit about this Rachel Carson Eco Village project that we took on. And this project is located just north of Pittsburgh. Okay. And as we start talking about the Eco Village a little bit, it kind of reminds me, the first Passive House tour that I ever took was at the Eco Village in Ithaca, for anybody who has ever made their way out there to check that out. So this project is very similar in nature to that project. And every Passive House project is going to be most successful if the Passive House designers get involved early. And so that was certainly the case with this project. The AUROS Group was involved from day one, and integrating the Passive House design through multiple model iterations is super important, we all know, to getting the results that the team is ultimately after. And again, given the press on time here, I'm going to kind of fly through these a little bit. So what we're looking at is an eco village that has really 4 different unit types. One of them is the common house, which we didn't go for certification on that, but we've got 3 3-bedroom row houses. We've got 8 2-bedroom row houses that look like this, and then we turn them on their sides, and we've got 4 of these types of units. Overall, there's 35 units in this village, and really there are only 3 different types of buildings, and this project was super beneficial to the Phius development protocols, because if we were to look at this site, for example, when we have a unit facing north and a unit facing south, we all know that the unit facing north is going to struggle to meet certification, right? So given that we're able to kind of look at this holistically, was really, really beneficial for this project. But early in the process, we're doing our energy modeling, and these projects are all pre-certified. All of these units are pre-certified with Phius Core 2021. Here's our energy modeling slide, right? This is what everybody's super interested in. All of the buildings are meeting our demand targets, okay? And so these are kind of how the numbers are made up. So we've got our X11 and 12 are combined. I think it's over here, I believe. But anyways, so you can see that the village is interspersed with 2 and 3 unit townhomes, with the common building pretty centralized, again, just bringing forth that inner community, and then common parking, and then more or less a walkable path to get to each one of these units. Okay. Now, what this project went after was panelization. Okay, so Blueprint Robotics was brought in, and actually all of the panels are already built, and they're sitting in the Baltimore warehouse right now waiting to be delivered to the site. So if you're not familiar with what Blueprint can do, they're a panelization company. They send pre-insulated walls with windows already installed to whatever kind of R value you're trying to achieve. In our case, we were doing a 2x8 wall with 2 inches of continuous wood fiber insulation, and an insulated service cavity that's a 2x6 wall. Okay, and then we've got, in order to meet our R value with hydrothermal analysis baked into it, we ended up going with a closed-cell foam insulation in the vaulted ceilings of these units. Okay. One of the really cool things that Blueprint has been able to do is build the HVAC systems into their panels. And what we're using in this project specific to mechanical systems is an Epica heating, cooling, and ventilation unit. And I don't know if is it this slide? No. And so when they can build a pod and have that pod delivered to the site with the Epica system already there, and all of the ductwork is already installed. And you can kind of get an idea of what that looks like here in all of the panels. And then we're connecting them on site, and we are ready to go. So each one of these individual units has its own dedicated ventilation system with heating and cooling associated with it. Now, there are limits to what the Epica system can do, and those limits are all based around what its ventilation capacity is. And again, we want to make sure that the heating and cooling capacity of those systems are big enough to heat and cool the house. Now, that system is a little bit different from the Minutair or the Serve system, in that the Epica has a passive heat recovery core versus the active heat pump core. So Blueprint is almost exclusively trying to push their projects to using the Epica systems, because they can have them pre-installed in their paneling system, in their pod, and have it shipped to the site ready to go, to save a lot of money in upfront costs for heating and cooling systems. And what we've seen in larger projects where we were working on with Blueprint is, 170 unit, 180 unit multifamily buildings are able to save $400,000 to $500,000 in mechanical system costs by utilizing an individual unit system like this. So really, really super exciting. And on top of the ability for them to panelize all of the systems, one of the really important things to consider here is when we're able to build things using 3D models and CNC machining, we're going to be able to reduce our waste, right? We're going to know if we should be cutting that 8-foot 2x4 or that 10-foot 2x4 to minimize what our waste is. And so also having factory installed windows and doors, building it in a controlled environment is really, really important for quality control. We're able to replace a lot of CMU that would normally be used on a site because we're able to utilize CLT. And we're also reducing the impact on our landfills by having much less waste, and the waste that they are generating is being reutilized in other ways. And so that allows for a little bit more material optimization. And when Blueprint is able to have their hands on as much of the project as possible, the coordination and reduction in change orders is also super, super critical and cost savings. Now, as part of what we're doing as the AUROS Group in this project is instituting smart building infrastructure. And many of you may have heard of a building automated system or a BAS system. What we're trying to do, or what we have done, is integrated a building automation system, energy meters and sensors, water meters and sensors, indoor air quality and security systems, and taken all of those operational technologies and taken that data and overlaid it with simulation. Okay. And now what we're able to do, so we're using all of this data that we're able to generate from within the building, right? And we're going to send all of the information from our meters and sensors, from our air quality meters, and we're going to send it to a JACE. And this JACE is then going to be sent to a data management system or a digital twin. And now we're able to overlay simulation from an 8760 model, right? Typically we'll use IESVE, and we can determine if the building is operating the way that we're expecting it to. It's one thing to say, yep, we're building a Phius certified building, and then never look at it again. We don't know if it's performing to the heating demand of 8.6 or whatever the heating demand number is, or what our site what our site limit is. We're modeling to be under that limit, and as long as we're under that limit, we're happy. But we still don't know if the building is performing as well as we designed it to. Okay. And so now what we're able to do is overlay our simulation data with our air quality information, right? Because our 8760 model is going to show us CO2 levels within each space. And we're able to overlay the actual energy use of the building, right? How much energy is our heat pump using? How much energy is our water heater using? How much energy are our lights and our plugs, right? A lot of those are at best, some educated guesses in our energy model. And so now we're able to determine, okay, why is our heating system not performing the way that we had modeled it? Did we model it correctly? Or maybe the refrigerant didn't get charged. Maybe the ventilation system filters are dirty, right? Maybe we need to look at some other aspect of the building to make sure that it's performing to its potential. And so that is my house, okay? So I've instituted this type of system to my house, kind of as a test case. And so I've got meters and sensors on my sand and water heater, on my Zender ventilation system, on my heat pump dryer, on my induction stove. And so we're able to now measure how much energy I'm using in the house, and then we can compare that to an IESVE model of our house and see the results side by side to make sure that my house is performing, or the building is performing the way that it was designed, not necessarily just to be under a threshold of certification criteria. Okay. And so this type of informational technology is being deployed at the Eco Village. And as the building comes online and we are gathering more information on it, we certainly will be keeping everyone posted on the information that we're gathering from that and any lessons learned in terms of process and things like that throughout the life cycle of the building. So with that, I will pass it back over to John. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, Matt. That's really great to see. I will hand it over to Stephanie now, who's going to be our final presenter. I understand we might go over a little bit, guys, over 6. So please stick with us. We're not going to cut it short. And just a reminder, this is being recorded if you have to leave and want to catch the end.
Sorry, I'm just trying to share the window that I'm intending here. Okay, just the slideshow, how's that? Okay. Hi, I'm back again, and talking about sort of 2 levels of practice with that I was involved in with North River Architecture and Planning and North River Design Build as co-founder and technical director of both. North River's sort of one entity. The firm originated as a more conventional architecture only practice, and around COVID, we launched a build side of the practice. And so these 2 projects that you can see right now are the second and third houses that were built by the North River Design Build, and they represent the prescriptive pathway that John referred to in his opening for this section, the segment, and they are presented here as a case study of scaling up single family, in that they embody a couple of strategic aspects of North River's practice that were intended to broaden the firm's reach and market impact. As a relatively small architectural and design build startup, the idea in these houses, which were called flex houses, was to offer a kind of pattern book of designs to clients, so that the entry into the design process wasn't from zero with each client, but as long as they were interested in the idea of the flex house, it was from a certain distance down the road of design concept, a footprint, a sort of plan set, and ultimately a library of working documents, which were available to our design team from project to project as a sort of a well-developed CD set, so that we weren't starting from zero each time. So that's on the design side, an intention to offer a lean design process and an efficient and simple and architecturally interesting suite of designs, and therefore by spending less, the idea is that spending less in the design phase of a project, there's a little bit more to spend in the construction phase, which is always the challenge, quite always budget challenged, no matter what the project is. The other aspect of this in terms of scaling up is that it's these are prescriptive certified projects. These are the first two actually certified prescriptive projects ever. And John sort of nurtured us all through the process. And I wouldn't say it was it wasn't a super challenging learning curve, because the process was very well developed by Phius to be a checklist-based compliance path. So there were targets that were based on the size and other features of, location, obviously, features of the buildings. And you had to hit those targets, and we had to hit an aggressive air tightness number, and obviously all of the ancillary programs, Indoor Air Plus, Zero Energy Ready Home, and Energy Star compliance pathways were required as well. But so in sum, I'm still on slide 1 here, I realize, but the sort of combo of Flex House, this pattern book approach, and prescriptive path were all part of this integrated approach to this offering. And I just wanted to share the kind of the journey of these projects over the years that the few years that our team was implementing them. So this is just a quick overview of the typologies that were developed, from small to a little bit bigger, and medium and large, and they ranged from 1,000 square feet for the Flex House 1 to just under 3,000 for Flex House 4. And then we had some custom designs that utilized similar envelope, structural, and mechanical system solutions that were divergent from this more simplified footprint and massing of the Flex Houses. So this is a calendar view of from 2018 to 2024. So 2018 was the completion of the first certified Flex House, which is encircled in blue here. John was the CPHC on that, and while I am a CPHC, my training actually dates back to 2011, and I learned on PHPP. So I don't have woofy chops. So John has been our partner in CPHC work in our certified projects since then. So in 2018, this was an energy modeled Flex House, the launch of the idea, and actually the launch of the early launch of the idea of design build practice. Well, the business wasn't launched until 2019 as a build practice. There was this idea developing a year or two earlier that we're not just architects, but we have the capacity to serve our projects all the way through construction, just because of our skill set and affinity for the process. So you can see that a few projects, 2018, 2019, these are our Flex Houses. 2020 is blank because the 2021 custom design residence was spanning both of those years. And then 2022 are the two projects that you saw on the first slide, our first two prescriptive paths, and then 2023 this year, one more prescriptive and another custom, and then you see it kind of go off the charts. I mean, that's in a good way. We've seen the real appreciation in our clients for these pre-made ideas about architecture, about design, and not limiting completely the ability to customize. Obviously, each site is different and each client is different, and so there's still some fun design time in each project. But the parties are strong enough to to be intact at the end of each individual design process, and So it has really obviously taken off over the years that it's been moving from an idea into reality. So that's been really gratifying. This slide is just a quick cost analysis. What I'm showing here on the left is that for an overall example project that is a flex house, the blue represents the construction cost, the yellow the design fee. So custom design is on the left and would necessarily have a larger design fee, but apples to apples, the construction cost would be the same. The idea in flex house economy of the design phase is just represented here, in that you're spending less in design, and then you can the client can utilize those savings in construction, and so they have access to more capital in the end for the project as it's actually built. So what this right hand side is showing is that the relative difference in certification costs between prescriptive and performance. And so we've done both certification methods. Performance obviously involves energy modeling, prescriptive does not. And then there's more iterative process with a energy model project. And so you end up having more design time and more consultant input. But it's not a driver overall for the project. I'm just showing you that there are other reasons to proceed with prescriptive path certification versus energy models or performance paths, but it doesn't really move the needle in terms of overall project costs. And so I would say that the decision to proceed with a certification method would probably be informed by other factors. But it was appreciated upfront in the design phase to have a lower cost burden for the prescriptive path certification. And I'll get into a little bit of the process in another slide, which I'll get to quickly. These are just some quick cross sections. This case study isn't intended to be about the design and envelope solutions for these buildings, so I'm not going to spend too much time on these, but just to say that it's a simple hunched frost protected shallow foundation. We utilize standard construction practices for budget reasons, and in order to access subcontractors of all stripes, there is a fair amount of training of subs that has happened, but we're not asking for anything really far outside the norm, other than the airtightness monitoring, which requires a level of oversight during framing and then when the trades are working the envelope at times. So truss roofs and as much cellulose insulation as we can use. We haven't had the opportunity to use wood fiber rigid insulation yet for cost reasons, but are looking forward to having a look at the timber HP products for sure. So these are two different projects. You can see we're just repeating these ideas because they work. That slide is glitchy, so these are intended to be floor plans. Oh, there we go. Again, one project is on the left. There's the other house is on the right. You're just seeing variations on a theme and with overall very similar building volume and look to the houses, as you could see in the first slide. So this is not really legible at this as detail, but just to give you an overview, these are the snapshots, the prescriptive snapshots that Phius has a tool to on their website to allow you to input the parameters of the project for location, for interior condition, floor area, number of bedrooms, and stories for occupant density. And then it generates basically an instructive list of your thermal enclosure values, and in some cases, some efficiencies and solar heat gain. These were the two, from left to right, these are the two houses that you saw. And then for the purposes of the presentation in Houston, I modeled one of the two houses as if it were in Texas, just to show how how that moves the needle on the thermal enclosure requirements. And as an example of the requirements for each project, there's a compactness requirement. So the building has to be relatively compact. It can't be quite extended. It can't have a lot of sort of articulation, and that's measured by a ratio of the external skin of the structure to its interior volume. And so you have to hit that target. There's a window to wall ratio requirement, so you can't have, you're limited in the amount of glazing, but I think you can see that wasn't really a design limitation for these projects. I mean, we're allowing for generous glass areas in the living spaces. And then you get into R values for the envelope, ERV efficiency, ERV total duct length, and heat pump efficiency. So those are the targets and the compliance values that you need to hit. And I'm going to skip over that video. This is, in summary, just a few of the stress points. So this is, in fairness, a bit of a critique of certification, well, an appreciation and a critique. So we had some trouble meeting the heat pump efficiency target. In our climate, our HVAC subcontractor and all of our project PMs were preferring a hyperheat model from Mitsubishi, and the COP on those models was too low, and we needed to get a waiver from Phius. They were accommodating, but when we're designing for some, maybe going forward, not as many, but some significantly cold days, and want to maintain comfort temperatures, and we want to use the hyperheat versions of the heat pumps, that was a compliance problem, and I'm not sure that it's solved yet. We had an exterior wall R value issue with an R value that we couldn't hit with dense pack cellulose, but within the prescriptive path, there's a way to calculate a UA alternative, which is a whole building analysis in checklist in a tabular form, and the buildings were compliant when it was analyzed in that way. With a prescriptive method, we cannot know or predict the energy requirements of the building because there's no energy model. And so in terms of sizing renewables, rooftop solar, we can't make a specific recommendation about what the array size should be to offset consumption. However, in these days, we're mostly recommending fill the roof as much as you can, max it out. They're going to use it. People are buying EVs. They're getting battery storage. They're getting, in New York, net metering. And so, the incentives for solar, residential solar installations are, I think, a 30% tax credit plus some additional funding. So all signs point to getting that solar on your roof, and whether it's oversized or perhaps a little undersized in some cases is a consequence, but it the installation of the solar is so well supported that this isn't really a problem for the prescriptive process. We had some issues with areas of glazing being higher on the north elevations of these homes. But again, prescriptive path offered an alternative compliance, which we were able to navigate successfully. And finally, the prescriptive path does not reward airtightness above the baseline. So it's a strict requirement higher than the performance path at 0.04 CFM per square foot of interior floor area. And we were not able to make any reductions in thermal the envelope conditions if we're hitting our targets more, with a higher level of airtightness. In other words, with an energy model, we'd be able to tune to our expected airtightness and perhaps dial down on some of the thermal values and result in cost savings for our clients. And so that optimization process, which I appreciate in performance projects, is not available in the prescriptive path. And I didn't miss that when we were working with set amounts of insulation, and we couldn't modify from those. So in the end, I would definitely recommend the prescriptive path, because you can see, this is John's graphic, that in a timeline form, that the time from start to finish for certification for prescriptive path, which is at the bottom, is dramatically reduced from a performance path, just due to expedited input processes and reviews. So it's been a positive experience for our team. It's worked hand in hand with the Flex House concept that we were bringing to the market, and it resulted in a certification for these projects at a lower cost overall than performance path would have been. So I think it's something that could be considered for a project, as long as you're hitting the targets of compactness, a sort of simple building design. And that's it. Thanks for your time, everyone. I hope we have a little bit of Q&A time. John, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Stephanie. This is great. Yeah, so we can open it up for Q&A. Unfortunately, Matt had to leave, but we still do have Andy and Stephanie. So if anyone would like to either unmute themselves and ask a question, or throw it in the chat, we can have a little discussion. And I will also share the CEU code again for tonight's meeting. It's worth 1.5 CEUs. Please just find that self-report area, and then you can enter the code 23900.
I have a question for Andy. Andy, do you provide options for colors and what options do you provide for the different exteriors for your houses, and also do they provide options for interiors as well?
For the finishes, you mean?
Yes, for the finishes.
Yeah, so we're not actually the architect on the project. We're just doing the passive house part of it, but I know that they are working through the I don't believe there will be many options for exterior. I think the renderings that you saw in my presentation are sort of the direction they're going, that more, I guess, natural wood look. As it relates to the interior, I'm not sure. I'm sure they'll have a couple different options, but I'm sorry, I I don't have that information available.
Oh, that's okay, thanks.
Hey, Andy, John Rodenizer.
Hi.
Love that layout of the subdivision in there. It looks great. Have you guys signed up with a rater yet?
No, we haven't. Not yet. We've the project has been stymied a bit by local commissions and such, so the schedule's been pushed out, unfortunately. But so some of that process stuff has halted. But I expect in the new year we'll start to kick into that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's my neck of the woods. If you need one, I'm game. I've got a number around and worked with John LaRocha before on just one we did in Falmouth. Just sort
Great.
of another project, and I've done the Finch building in Cambridge. I've got a few going that have done the first couple in Rhode Island as well.
All
Love
right.
to work with you there.
Yeah. We'll keep you in mind for sure.
Thanks.
And John, since you spoke up, I did notice your question in the chat earlier about the Ridge Carson Eco Village and the double stud wall. So for everyone, typically Phius will, for most of their projects, kind of frown upon exterior load-bearing double stud walls for hydrothermal perspective. And essentially for this project, we did a one-time simulation, a hydrothermal simulation for this wall assembly. And then once that passed the assembly, we were able to apply that over the entirety of the buildings. So it's another kind of economy of scale where we're just doing that one simulation one time and then being able to kind of sign off on the rest of the buildings.
Is Phius revisiting that at all?
For the prescriptive path, that's still baked in. But for any project, you would be able to do a hydrothermal analysis. All right, I know we're over time. Does anyone have any last questions before we end for the night? Okay, very good. Well, everyone, thank you so much for your time tonight. And we had a really great show out. I think there was some good content from the Phius Alliance New York. We're wishing you happy holidays. I hope everyone has a safe and healthy new year. And we will see you in the spring for our next spring quarterly. So hope everyone has a great night. Thanks again.